Holy shit. Game of Thrones, welcome to What the Flick, everybody. Game of Thrones, episode 9, called...
The Reigns of Castamere.
Bullshit, it was the Red Wedding. And everybody knew it, and they couldn't name it that, because that would have been trending. Right. But all you guys, that's what you guys refer to it as, those who've read the book.
Okay, what is that? What does that mean?
The Red Wedding is one just supposed to give you the idea of it being a betrayal and murder and all that, and it's also a callback to historically what this came from, which is something that happened in Scotland called the Black Wedding, which also had betrayal and murder, and that was an actual real life event.
And what's the Reigns of Castamere?
The Reigns of Castamere is the song that's about what Tywin Lannister did to the family, the Reigns, when they were challenging the power.
Right.
And Cersei explained it to Marjorie in the last episode.
Oh, right.
So it's the Reigns who live at Castamere, but it's also the idea is that they've all been killed, their castle is torn down, and now just rain just comes on their castle. That's the only thing you can hear there.
Yeah, that story reminds me of when the Mongols got messed with in a particular town in Central Asia, in a fairly large city, one of the larger cities in the world at the time. Not only did they destroy the city, kill every man, woman, and child, and destroy every single building, but they rerouted a river that went through it so that it would be wiped off the face of the earth. Wow. And that's what Tywin Lannister reminded me of. And that's what he did last night to the Starks, which was the single most painful thing I have ever watched, not just on television, but ever.
Yes,
okay.
I agree with you. It was really difficult to watch, and after that scene, after the Red Wedding, I just remember thinking, questioning whether or not I want to continue watching. Because on one hand, it was so surprising, and entertaining is not the right word, because you're not entertained, you're just so shocked, right? Though. You're captivated, exactly. But at the same time, I just felt so negatively about that scene that I was like, I remember turning around and looking at my friends and saying, I'm never watching this again. And then right afterwards, I'm like, I can't wait for the next episode.
Well, I don't have any doubt that they will lose some viewers.
I got tweets like that after episode 9 of the first season.
Yeah, and some people will leave, but this is even more. That was 9 episodes of Killing Ned Stark. This is 29 episodes that they've done, where the whole thing was essentially there are a ton of storylines, but the main storyline is the Lannisters and the Starks. The Lannisters and the Starks. That's the rivalry. Those are the people you know best.
Yeah.
Those are the people we get, and that storyline is concluded. Less than but it's basically concluded. I mean, I got it. Bran lives. There's an heir. At some point, they're going to realize he lives, and he's a smart little bastard, and with great powers. And Jon Snow may reassert himself as a Stark. There's a host of possibilities, but they got no army. This part of that story is completely concluded, and that is
what about Arya? Arya still lives.
Come on. She's a young girl.
She's a girl.
Well, she's a girl, but really fast.
She's a smart girl, and I feel like she's going to do something. And by the way,
she's definitely going to do something.
Well, you know who else is also a girl?
Sansa.
Well, Sansa, sure. Khaleesi, exactly. That's what I was going to say. And Khaleesi is a badass, and Arya, I would argue, is stronger than Khaleesi is.
Arya delivered that line. Someday, I'm going to put my sword through your eye and out the back of your skull. And she just turns away. From one of the she says that's one of the most stone-cold killers in the world. But that's a badass girl.
From
and
a
good
TV
actress.
point of view, to sort of take a storyline and end it like that, I got it.
That's 100%.
That's an amazing thing to do.
There's a million storylines, and one of the best lines of this episode was when Bran got in the mind of Hodor and said, "Can they do that beyond the wall, etc.?" And they said, no one can do that anywhere.
Right.
Okay, and I was like, oh, damn. Right? Because, I mean, the ability to control other human beings with your mind is pretty badass, okay? I mean, that's dragon level stuff, okay?
Yeah, right.
That's Vagine monster level powers, okay? So, I mean, the Starks, again, could make a comeback in a different way, but Ben is right. I mean, their armies wiped off the face of the earth, and Robb Stark, who was a great strategic mind when it came to war, and you were rooting for him, is gone. The mom, who was the central emotional character, she died without knowing her 3 kids are still alive.
Let's talk about that. So here's what she thinks. She sees her oldest son killed, right? She sees her grandchild killed, her unborn grandchild killed, right?
Ned, too.
She thinks her 2 little boys are dead. Right?
No. And Arya.
And Arya.
And
she's been
Sansa.
And Sansa. And she couldn't rescue them. And it all got sent into action because she left them to make a little trip to see her husband.
And I feel
she dies thinking she is the worst mother. Oh, and she had this moment, she had this wonderful epiphanic moment of, I did wrong by Jon Snow. And so you think then, well, she sees Jon Snow, you know what she's going to do? She's going to give him a hug. Nope, doesn't get to do that either.
In the ground.
And what about that moment of like tenderness between Talisa and Robb Stark? You know, he's like rubbing her belly, and that you can tell that they're in love. And Caitlin watches that,
And she's finally happy?
She's finally happy. You could see, you know what? She's ready to accept Talisa, and it was a great moment. I feel like the name of the episode should be So Close but So Far, because Arya is about to reconnect with her family, but right before she does so, boom, they're all dead.
Jon
right?
Snow and
Jon
Bran
Snow
are
and
very
Bran.
close,
So
yeah.
close, but so far. So it was just like this episode of frustration. You're like, come on, just if it was only 5 minutes earlier, but then Arya would have died. So.
It's a good thing she didn't make it
Yeah,
in time.
yeah.
So 2 quick things about that. Number 1, the Starks, when you realize what the Game of Thrones is about, and that's why this thing is so awesome, because it's ironically realistic. Like, because every Hollywood movie or TV show, the good guy always wins,
Yes.
right? 99% of the time they win. Here, the good guys don't win, and precisely because they are good guys.
Exactly.
The Achilles heel of the Starks are honor and love, okay? If Robb Stark hadn't fallen in love with Talisa, okay, he would have had the phrase on his side. He wouldn't have been murdered by the phrase. He probably would have beat the Lannisters. And by the way, the love of the mother for her 2 daughters released the hand of the Jaime Lannister. Those are the 2 critical mistakes they made. If they didn't make those 2 mistakes for love and honor, right now they would have had the Karstarks, they would have had the Freys, and they probably would have had Tywin Lannister's head on a stick. And that's what did them in. The thing that makes us root for them and just writhe in pain as they die is the reason they die.
And even the move, so obviously his move of not marrying the Frey daughter because he falls in love with Talisa is an obvious mistake. But then even a moment where he could have avoided paying bitterly for that mistake is that he makes another bad decision. I mean, as great as he was young and inexperienced, and the fact is his mom recognized, don't cut off the Karstark's guy's head, you'll lose your army. If he hadn't done that, maybe he doesn't even have to go back
to the Freys.
to Freys. And so he made, I mean, he
But
was...
that was the thing about honor. That's what I meant.
Right, that's
like
not-
it was
right.
Caitlyn's love for the kids that released the Kingslayer, and it was his honor. Like you cannot betray me. I will cut your head
and
off.
not just betray you because you killed the innocent Lannister kids. And I want Tywin. I don't want to kill his frickin' 14-year-old nephews. We don't do that.
So
Right.
what I really loved about this, obviously, I knew that this was coming and everything, and later on after this was probably the single most surprising one scene in the series, but there's more betrayals coming, there's more murders coming. And what I loved is we were sort of introduced to the concept that your favorite character could die when Ned Stark was killed in the first season, but it's been a while since then, and people might have been getting cozy.
Right.
But what I love about the Red Wedding...
Don't get cozy. We'll slice their friggin' throats.
What I love about the Red Wedding is that books later now, there are scenes that'll happen that we're not going to see on TV for like 3 or 4 years, where characters will get in like a sword fight, characters that have been around since the very beginning, and I legitimately do not know if they will survive, and it makes it so much more enjoyable because sometimes he goes crazy and he cuts someone's head off.
So how did the episode differ from what you've read in the books? Because that's been, I don't know, some people are criticizing the show for that, but would you say that the show is better, or would you say the book is better?
So I'm not going to say anything about the differences that might lead to a spoiler, but stuff that I don't believe that will lead to a spoiler is, in some ways, it was harder to watch than it was to read. And in, I think, maybe IGN's review or the AV Club's review, they said that one of the differences between a book and a show is that in the book, if it's too shocking, you can read fast to get past it, or you can read slower to process it. But on the show, you're along for the ride. Now, in terms of what was very different is, in the books, Robb Stark is not a viewpoint character, and Richard Madden makes him a better character than he is in the books.
They totally built that part up. The kid Robb is in it, and the Red Wedding happens, and he's slaughtered, and he's the king of the North.
But you don't care as
You don't
much.
care as much. They made him a character that matters.
And Talisa is a way more interesting character than the character she is in the books, who's totally different. Like, you care way more about her. There's the pregnancy angle. So I was watching it with my former co-host Lisa on video Skype. When they started stabbing her in the stomach, I actually screamed. Like, I had more of a reaction than the person who hadn't read the books. And so in that way, I think, even though I knew it was coming, it had a bigger emotional reaction
But in the
on me.
books, she's not at the wedding.
No, she's not.
She lives.
She's like a nobody.
Right, we don't know. We don't know.
interesting.
Except, is she pregnant? Does she have his child in the books? We don't. I mean,
Well, they don't make it clear, and people
Right.
had the theory that, oh, maybe she's actually off there. After this episode, I would say that that's probably not the case.
So I had a couple of quick detail questions. at one point when Robb Stark is looking at the map with the lions and the wolves on the map, there's a red X behind the wolves, okay? And it looks like the thing that Theon Greyjoy is on.
Yeah.
Okay, can you, is it a spoiler to confirm whether that's true or not? Did you notice that?
I can't confirm or deny if that's it looks like what Theon's on, but what I can say is what that is it's the symbol upside down of the Boltons. Like their flag is actually the guy being flayed.
Oh, really?
They've shown their flags.
flag.
Yeah, it's a weird house.
well,
they've shown their flags in the show before.
Yeah.
And so those are the Bolton forces.
Okay, well, now we know why that's their flag,
Exactly.
right? And the
Also,
Boltons
how about-
were Bolton, the Starks. So, but doesn't that indicate that Theon
that mean?
Greyjoy is probably with the
Hold on,
Boltons?
what does that mean?
They bolted the.
They left.
the
They
alliance with the
abandoned them.
Starks.
They bolted the Starks.
Yeah, close enough.
Jesus.
Makes sense, kind
The
of.
Boltons.
I just don't. I don't think it respects you to let you get away with that stuff. How about?
Oh, here we go.
How about Lord Bolton's like, what a douchebag. I mean, it's not like because he's like. But
I know.
But he just shows
It
it.
was her hand.
Caitlin.
Yeah, but he looked at his arm. He
Yeah, it
looked
was
at his
his
arm.
arm,
No,
he
he
had
was
the
like,
armor.
and he
He's a
didn't
dick.
pull it away. He was like, look at it,
Yeah, yeah.
see what's about to happen.
Plus, he marries for money. That was a funny little line.
Yeah,
That he got.
she's made me very rich. Yeah.
And come on, he had one of the better lines, though, as evil a character as he is. The Lannisters send their regards. Woof. But you know what? Like, if the shoe was on the other foot and somebody was stabbing Joffrey and they said, the Starks send their regards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, how badass would that be?
It would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, look, now that we lost one of the characters we love, at the end I thought, it's gotta be Khaleesi. Don't let anyone else win.
know, but
It's gotta be Khaleesi.
But now I'm afraid to get attached to any one character. Like Khaleesi has been my favorite character all throughout this entire show, and I feel like I need to convince myself to hate her.
Yeah.
You know? Like-
Here's my worry about Khaleesi, and it comes from having watched television and movies for my entire life.
my worry is that crooked tooth guy is going to turn on her.
I mean, this is the guy she's getting all
long-haired
verklempt for.
Fabio.
Like any blonde-haired, long-haired guy on television is a bad guy. They all are. I'm not kidding. Like think of every John Hughes movie. Who's the rich kid? Who's just a dick, right? And and like Alexander Goodenough in Die Hard and Gary Busey in most of his movies. They're sinister. They're not to be trusted. That guy is not to be trusted.
The flip side is that Game of Thrones breaks every convention of television.
Yeah, but it's still